Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Matt Goes to the Movies. Thanks for being here with us today. And we are taking a little bit of a detour. If you've been listening to this show, you know that we are right in the midst of a Spider-Man marathon, preparing for Spider-Man No Way Home. But as we're on that road, we are going to take a detour here to talk about Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the movie. And to do this episode, I'm actually really excited because my son is actually joining me for this, as we have both taken different paths to Final Fantasy VII in terms of how we were introduced to it. So, Brandon, welcome to the show. A little odd.
Hey, what's up? It's really nice, especially considering this was actually my idea here doing the podcast on 7 Remake. Advent Children.
Yeah, it definitely was your idea, and, like I said, we were introduced to Final Fantasy VII at obviously different times. My first experience came from, the PlayStation game and just being in awe of everything that brought to the table at the time, but once Remake was announced and you started getting into it, you really dove hard into Final Fantasy VII and watching videos. Why don't you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I remember my first introduction to actually Final Fantasy as a whole was through this movie. Funny enough, I remember the way it was introduced was you looking through YouTube through actually the final fight of this movie. And then I was like, oh, it looks really cool. Didn't touch the series for 16 years. Then I think it was Final Fantasy 15 that I was first introduced to the series. Then Remake ended up getting its demo. I played it. I loved it. Then me and you ended up actually staying up until Remake released. We played a couple chapters into it, and I was just hooked ever since.
Yeah, it was really funny just from a YouTube clip, and one thing with this movie is now more than ever this movie is so relevant. So to go back and watch it again, especially with Remake the game being out and so many thoughts and theories which we'll get into, it felt like the right time to talk about this movie, just because again it seems more relevant than it's ever been in the lore of Final Fantasy with everything that's going on. So we're going to move along here, and we're going to go to the watch rating segment. Now, for listeners, watch rating, we rate this on a 3-scale tier here. Whether or not the watch rating is high, medium, or low. And in this, we're going to explain why we feel that, our ranking should be where it is. So I'm going to go first, and for me, this is high. Even before everything happened with Remake, I did like this movie. There's definitely some flaws with it, but it's just really fun. Then they came out with the Complete Edition, which has more screen time, reworked scenes. There's actually blood added to it in the final battle, which makes a lot of sense. And I thought it just made it overall an even better movie. And then, like we talked about with Remake, now this just ties in so much more. And going back and watching this movie, I feel like every time a new part comes out for Final Fantasy VII Remake on PlayStation, I might have to go back and rewatch this movie, because it just seems like maybe there'll be more hints as to where this story is going. So for me, this is going to be a high rewatchability rate.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. First of all, it is a decent movie. I always made this movie to be, it was kind of the bad movie that I really, really enjoyed. Kind of like the Fast and Furious series. There are parts where it's oh my god. And then there's parts, especially the fights, which we'll get into, this is really, really good. But then again, now more than ever, you should really watch this movie, especially if you're a 7 fan.
Yeah, so great stuff there. Listeners, if for any reason you've never watched Advent Children, or you have not for some reason played Remake, there are going to be parts of this next segment where, or if you've never played the original, there's going to be parts in this next segment where we do get into heavy spoilers. So for some reason, if you're just playing through Remake now, or you've been looking at the social media channel for Matt Goes to the Movies and are like, oh, geez, I want to watch that movie but haven't gotten around to it, this is where you would pause the episode, because we're going to start getting into spoilers from the original release to Remake, and how it ties into Advent Children and some of the things that we think are going on. So, Brandon, this is almost a nightly snack, but it's time for popcorn time here at Matt Goes to the Movies. So, Popcorn Time, listeners, is a breakdown of the movie, its main characters, themes, relatable messages. We're going to go over our favorite, least favorite parts of the movie, favorite characters, and least favorite character. I think we both have somebody in mind right off the bat that might be least,
I have
but
a couple.
we'll probably save that. However, a quick breakdown of this movie is this takes place after the original Final Fantasy VII. They have defeated Sephiroth. Cloud is now not exiled, but he's just taken to himself. He doesn't hang around with the group anymore. He's a loner, much to the dismay of the people that were close to him, such as Vincent, Barrett, Tifa, Marlene. And they want him to come back, but he just does not feel like he's a part of the group. But something else that's happened is they're developing a geostigma, which is a sickness that's plaguing some of the children, and really sets the stage for the main antagonist of this movie. But Brandon, I'll let you kind of take over a little bit here with what this movie is and where it led after the original Final Fantasy.
I believe it's actually 2 years after. Yeah, it is 2 years. It's kind of weird because when you watch the movie, they don't give the subtitles for after 2. So it's like, is this 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? But it's funny enough, this movie starts off at the very end of Final Fantasy VII, where the three, as you would say, dogs are running out into the field, looking over the city of Midgar. And then it decides to go back to where 2 years after the ending of the Sephiroth battle, actually, in the original 7.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's really quick, I just want to make a quick pause because how good this movie looks. That scene with Red 7 running through, which is set 13, I don't know why I said 7, thinking of a video game. Red 13, running through, and it's set 500 years after the events of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
So, man, I remember this movie first came out, I was like, wow, this looks absolutely incredible, and it still looks really good. And we actually, we watched this movie in 4K on a new TV that supports 4K, and it looks like back then when it first came out in 2005, it looked good. And now, a re-release in 4K, it looks even better. Like, this movie is gorgeous.
Yeah, I was actually just about to ask when this movie came out. I was like, the graphics still kind of hold up. Especially after the opening scene of Remake. I'm like, man, this is better looking than Advent Children.
Right.
When we go back to Advent Children, I'm like, man, this movie hasn't drastically aged with how you would think it would. Like, even other movies back then have probably aged way worse than Advent Children. So it's pretty amazing what Square Enix was able to do.
Yeah, it is really amazing how well this movie looked for the time, and then again, this 4K remaster. And, with this movie, the gang is all back together in a manner of speaking. It might take a while for the whole gang to be here, but you get everybody that you loved from Final Fantasy VII, the original, and that's where we'll go first. Is we'll get into kind of Remake a little bit here, but the main antagonists of this movie are the Advent Children, and we are introduced to them in a way that I actually think works very well. I think it's actually kind of funny. I like the different personalities that all three of them have. But I know, Brandon, you have a lot to say about these guys, so I'll let you kind of get into that.
I would say, yeah, it does. It opens up pretty well until you hear, "Where's mother?"
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when you can kind of, don't cry, and you're like, oh no, come on.
Yeah, there's some parts here that are, again, this is not a perfect movie, but their motivation, especially Kadaj, I think out of the three, I think he's the most well-rounded. He definitely seems to be the leader of that group in this movie, and I think he gets the best dialogue, so to speak, because the other antagonists are really just there to have some cool fight scenes, and the opening one with Cloud is very well done. I thought it was a great way to start the movie.
All of the fight scenes are well done.
Yeah,
that's another thing that's aged. Like, this movie has aged like probably one of the best I've ever seen in terms of fight scenes. Because there was one in the woods. I'm like, man, this is really good. This is like really good. I'm like, wow. Like, you look at some movies now, like even some Marvel movies, you're like, this is better than that sometimes.
Yeah, the choreography for the fights is really well done. I love the update to Cloud's sword where it can break into different parts. At least being used full time in this movie, and it makes it believable that he's able to take these guys on, two at a time in some of these fight scenes. I really liked how they did that. I love Cloud's outfit in this game. I think that's really, really well done. And then you get, who I thought was actually really interesting in this game is Rufus Shinra. This movie. I thought Rufus was actually really well done, and his playing it very close to the vest with, talking to Cloud, trying to get his help, but also somewhat acting like he's working with the Advent children, and, I don't know where Mother is, which, spoilers for anybody who doesn't know, Mother is they're talking about Genova, and that's who they're looking for. But I thought Rufus was really well characterized in this.
I will say this is kind of the, so far, peak of Rufus's character development, because there's prequels to FF7 to where you kind of really see, like, Rufus isn't the one-dimensional villain he is in the original game, so he kind of takes the role of, as you say, he kind of takes a double agent role while also kind of working for himself because he thinks he knows what's best. But they talk about how he wants kind of redemption for not only himself but for Shinra.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, they show a flashback to it. He should be dead. But it's actually explained in the book that there's a room up in this big tower where his office was that him and his father, well, actually his father alone makes, that has an L on it. And he said to Rufus, if you ever need this button, it means that you have lost in your life. And to the company, that means, like, he's failed. So they don't really go over that in this movie, which is kind of unfortunate, because it's pretty, like, Rufus is a really good character. One of the better ones in 7 as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny, some of the stuff, when you first watch this movie, there's things that are like, okay, I feel like maybe there's some missing plot points or there's some missing character development, but this is where we can talk about remake as well a little bit and incorporate some of it. When you play Final Fantasy VII Remake, for listeners that have played it, and you go back and watch this movie, it makes it incredibly interesting, not just for the Advent children, but, these other characters as well, because, go to any message board, any Final Fantasy fan base, this remake game looks like there is some elements of time travel involved, and maybe Advent Children has taken place in this world. And Brandon, you have a really interesting theory about Advent Children when we watched it back as to why Marlene would be doing the voiceover for the opening of this movie. And I thought your thoughts were actually really good on this.
So, in Remake, there's spoilers. Aerith knows what's going on, or what's going to happen, and she also knows something's up, that events are taking place in different areas. Even when she doesn't know, she's being attacked in different areas, and then when she finally finds out, she has these weird powers where she kind of touches somebody on their head, and it's kind of shown that they then know the same knowledge as her. So early on in the game, she does that to Marlene.
Yeah, she has to go back and save her when the sector plate's collapsing.
Yeah, and then later in the game, Barrett kind of calls out to Marlene, literally outside the city, from me to North Carolina away. That's how far Barrett was from Marlene, and Marlene's like, "Is that Daddy?" And you're like, "What?" Hopefully that gets explained later, but you're like, "What?" And then she's going over. I'm like, this would be really nice, a really nice recap, if it wasn't Marlene. I'm like, because it's really weird that someone who wasn't there. Oh,
yeah.
I was like, oh, so is that scene with Aerith fixing a plot hole in Advent Children where she knows?
Right.
I'm like, what?
Right, because when you take Advent Children just after Final Fantasy VII, when it first came out, the original game on PlayStation, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Marlene to be doing the voiceover and talking about the events of what happened, especially because, it's only 2 years. She's still just a kid. It seems weird. But when you go back to that scene where Aerith goes back to, pick her up, and she touches her, and Marlene's like, huh? And Aerith is just like,
shh. Can't tell anybody.
Right, don't tell anybody.
We gotta wait till part 3 to tell that.
It would definitely make sense as to why she's doing the voiceover. And, one of the other, giveaways that people know what's going on or have knowledge of these events is the fact that when you're fighting the Arbiter of Fate in Final Fantasy VII Remake, when you destroy certain parts of it, you get those flashes. And some of those scenes, when we rewatch this back, are ripped, right out of the movie.
Yeah, they're from... 2 of the 3 of those are from the movie.
Literally shot for shot.
Exact shot.
So, and when, the one knowledge hits and you actually see Red 13 running through the canyon.
You're like, huh? And
Barrett's like, what the heck did I just see?
We're wondering the same thing.
I didn't notice it, though, at first, but when you're playing the game again, because, boy, we've played through that game so many times, or that last segment of the game, that last chapter... Aerith and Red actually both turn and look at each other and acknowledge what's going on. They both know that these events have already occurred. And he says what he says, a glimpse of tomorrow
if we
fail here today. And I never really noticed the acknowledgement between Red and Aerith until a couple of playthroughs, and I was like, oh, geez, they both know what's going on here.
See, I kind of realized that. It was when Red confirmed what it was, I was like, oh, so he knows as well. Because, first of all, it's a vision of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the stuff with Aerith. One thing I also will mention, it does seem like they're very subjective with, first of all, what's shown and how the character dialogue is. Because they mention if we fail, that's a bad thing. If they fail, everything goes the same. If they lose to the Harbinger of Fate, that means Advent Children happens in 2 years.
Right, exactly.
And one thing I will mention, before we kind of go any further with the time travel stuff, I feel like it's important to mention probably the key thing that's also in the background, unfortunately, for Advent Children, and it's the actual conflict of Aerith versus Sephiroth in Advent Children, and it's pretty hard to notice unless you've read the book that ties in between, and the passages of, like, the after the chapters of Lightstream Black and White.
Yeah, there's, it seems like they are really, especially too, I don't want to delve too far into all those other mediums. That's maybe another podcast episode when parts 2 and 3 come out. Because they're doing so many things now with Final Fantasy VII. You're getting the mobile game that runs you through everything. Even now, all of a sudden, Advent Children, which is like, wait a minute, how are you going to play Advent Children? And it really feels like, the things from the book in these mobile games in part 2 and part 3. I'm hoping it's not part 4 because I don't want to wait till 2029 to be able to see the ending
Don't
of
want
this.
to be 28.
Right. To see everything, but it really feels like they are bringing all of these mediums together to really tie this Final Fantasy VII story in a bow. And I will say, getting back to the movie, though, there is one thing, I said, we talk about the main characters and the gang's all here. If I did have one complaint about the main characters of this movie, besides one very, very egregious one in my view, it is the fact that it takes a very long time for the group to get back together. And I understand that this movie is, about Cloud's personal journey, about forgiveness, and wanting to be part of the group. But I still feel a little bit... cheated's not the right word, but I can't think of anything else to say right now. But bummed out that the group doesn't get together until really the end of the movie as a whole. And then, even as a group, they don't have a ton to do together. There is a fight scene, but then it's once again very much a Cloud story. Brandon's making a gesture right now as we're recording because he absolutely adores one scene in particular during that fight.
Adores is a good word.
So, Brandon, why don't you let them know what you're actually talking about right there as you're making a gesture?
Well, first I would say you're right with I feel like you're right with how you could feel cheated out of getting the interactions with the entire group, because the game's like, if you kind of beeline it to the story, the game's like 40-45 hours. So you have a lot of time to like learn with these people. Mm-hmm. So you kind of grow attached, and then they're kind of there, and they all interact with each other except for really Cloud.
Right.
Like Sid, I don't even think looks at Cloud really most of the movie. Like Kate Sith doesn't look at him. Like they don't interact with Cloud, and it's very weird. Especially how like close they were like near the end after the big scene in 7. But the thing we're talking about. So I think it's this third to last fight against this big dragon called Bahamut. I forgot what type it was, but there's a scene where he flies straight up and he's basically going to nuke the planet with a blast, and Cloud needs to get up there and kill it right then. So, how they get him up there is they defy every single law of physics. Now, I know it's from a game, they've done it before, but when you see it, it just looks very funny, because they grab him as they're falling from midair and somehow find the strength to launch from 50 feet up in the air.
Yeah, they just, one person after another just keeps throwing them. And again, though, great visual when he's fighting, and the monster looks incredible. This is also where, and we've completely skipped over him though. This is where you get a little bit more Reno and Rude fighting two of the Advent children while Kadaj is talking to Rufus. I really like them, and boy, did Final Fantasy VII Remake really do a great job of fleshing them out more in terms of video game form. So after playing Remake and being able to go back and watch this movie, I like them even more. I get a real kick out of those two characters.
So, I actually, in terms, Rude doesn't really, like, he doesn't really change much as a character in Advent Children.
No, not really.
It's Reno that I really don't like in this movie.
Oh,
because he does a complete, like, if you pay attention to his dialogue in the original, and even in Remake, they kind of harp on this. Like, he does a 180 in terms of his personality. And the one scene is, oh, how'd you know we would hide her there? Or something like that. He's like, oh, Rude, how could you do that? And he blames Rude on something he did. Now, that's a callback to the game, actually. To where he steps on some very important flowers, and then the Shinra guards or whatever are with him, and he goes, oh, don't step on the flowers. And they're like, dude, what the heck? You just did that. But, like, I could understand that, but he really, like, he's a little too goofy, I could say. Because it shows, like, he's super, like, competent, and he's kind of, like, I think he's, like, second in line to Sung, and, like, they really, like, flip that around where he's clumsy, he makes mistakes a lot, like, and he also is, like, very early in the movie, this movie could have been shorter if Reno didn't mess up with Cloud, because they're talking, it's like, yeah, let's rebuild Shinra, and, like, 5 seconds before that, Cloud was ready to help him out. He says that, and Cloud's like, nope, not interested, leaving, and then we got another, like, 20 minutes before they, like, join up again.
Yeah, you know what, I can certainly see, you know, that side of everything. I still really like them. I think he's kind of funny in this, but again,
oh yeah, he's still it. Like, he's still, like, he's a good character, but it's when you consider, like, what that character, like, someone can still be a good character, but still be bad compared to how they were in a different, like, medium.
Yeah, very fair point. I will say with this movie and then playing the game, one character who I was always enamored with and having to go through what you had to go through in the original Final Fantasy VII to unlock this character is playing Remake, then playing the integrated DLC, and getting to play as Yuffie. I have to tell you, I'm so, like, enamored with Vincent that he is, like, I just want to play as him in Remake. The quicker we're able to do that, the better for me. I really like his design in this movie. Again, that's kind of where I feel cheated a little bit, is I wish we got some more of these other characters and some actual battles for them, because, you know, his quick little appearance when he saves Cloud, when he's going to save all the kids, it is just really, really cool. His movements are incredibly fast. The cape's flying around, and I just wish we got a little bit more of that. But man, I cannot wait until we are able to have him as part of the group in FF7 Remake.
Yeah, I understand, because if you I played through the original first, and I played it again on the PS5 with the Yuffie DLC. First, they improved the combat very well, like, even better than, like, what's better than, like, perfect.
Yeah.
And then you get the Yuffie DLC, like, oh my god, they could, like, evolve with this. Like, what are they gonna do in, like, 2026 when, like, we're at the end of the generation, really? But then, like, man, how Vincent moves, like, how he covers himself with the cape and starts shooting through the holes, it is really good.
Yeah, I will say the combat, and we talked about that almost instantly when we turned on that game. The combat in FF7 is so flawless and so smooth. It's just really fun to play. And I think, we mentioned the fight scenes. it's really fun to watch the fight scenes because they're so smooth and the moves that go into there. Like when you really break this down and all of the little details of like how Cloud's holding his sword and the movement to block and just everything that goes on into the animated choreography that they did, there is some amazing work in this movie. Especially, dare say that his fight with Kadaj is, if it's not, it's like a 1A 1B situation for me, where his one-on-one fight with Kadaj is really well done, and to me almost the best battle in the movie.
What's funny is that I think that I'd place that third.
Okay.
I don't know what it is with like Kadaj's movements. He seems like a little too fast for the fight.
Gotcha.
I don't know what it is. I would say number 2 is the fight in the Forgotten City.
Ooh, okay.
Like, that thing as a whole is like, I wish that in like some part in Remake, Cloud fights how he does in that scene, like how he dual wields.
Like, dual wielding in the game.
If you played any of the games, like you would not think like, oh, he's got the iconic Buster Sword, and you can't imagine dual wielding, and then you look at it like this, like once again you're looking at it, it's like this is really good.
Yeah, I mean, you've got. It's almost hard to talk about like Yuffie and Sid, even Red or Kate Sith, because they're really just there. They're kind of there to talk about some dialogue, really.
Yeah, they don't have much
in Advent Children, but again, we're talking about the geostigma and everything like that, and the whole. You find out the whole focus of this is they're going to use Mother Genova to resurrect Sephiroth.
Yep.
And that's where things get really wild when you're looking at this movie and you're looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake, because there's certainly some indications that Sephiroth in Remake has already seen the events of Advent Children. He knows what has happened. But before we pick up into that, the little teases that you get from him, like in those quick little flash visions, and like you see him in like Kadaj's eye when he's talking to Rufus and he's having a flash, and then before the end when he summons the monster and he's like, you feel him, don't you? Like the anticipation to getting him throughout the movie, and then when Kadaj finally fuses with Genova cells and he's falling off the building, Cloud jumps after him, and yeah, he just boom, you see him, and it's just hello, Cloud, yeah. And the music plays. Like, I don't know that there's any. And I'm not talking about in video game, like I'm being dead serious here. I don't know if any other music gets me as freaking hyped as One Winged Angel. When that thing starts, like I'm not kidding, you can take any song in existence, like I mark out for that theme so much. And when that hits and he first pops on screen, back then it was like, oh my god, like this is so cool. And even watching it again, it's like he's just to me he's one of the most iconic characters in video game history. Like he to me is up there.
Oh yeah, with JRPGs especially, he's there for iconic villains. If you have played an extensive amount of JRPGs, you've heard of Sephiroth.
Well, look at his crossover. Kingdom Hearts. He showed up in Super Smash. He's one of the hardest bosses in Kingdom Hearts.
Oh yeah, that was my other introduction. Was the Final Fantasy characters, especially 7, being connected with Tetsuya Nomura. That was my first really instance with Sephiroth. It kind of shows just how someone can create a character like this, not only with Nomura's design, with just his writing in general. Like someone that menacing that, like, as soon as you hear those drums start pounding and you see that wing, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, it's just such like an invigorating feel to hear that music start pumping up. And I'll talk about Remake a little bit, but again, some of these shots from Advent Children watching this movie and then watching or playing through Remake, when he's talking to Cloud and he's like, what I want is to sail this vessel through the cosmos, and he throws the hand up and the clouds start swirling in and the sky turns black. It's literally the reverse scene in Remake, but it's the same thing shot for shot. The way he's in the air, the way he raises his hand, but now in the game he undoes the clouds when he does it. But the shots of him and the parallels are just like it is way too much to ignore. And the way that he talks in Remake, especially if you like, let's say you watch Advent Children and then you jump into, is it chapter 17 or chapter 18 where you go to
18.
So chapter 18 in the game, you watch Advent Children, go jump into chapter 18 and watch the similarities and watch how he talks, especially when him and Cloud are at the end of creation. Like, this Sephiroth, it looks like there is two different Sephiroths in the universe of the Final Fantasy VII Remake game. One that is going on the same path and one that actually knows what has happened. He's experienced Final Fantasy VII, the original timeline. He's experienced the timeline through Advent Children, and now he is trying to find a way to manipulate Cloud to not go against him so that he can somehow survive and actually still be, like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
You resurrected in a way?
Yeah, kind of. Like, he can maybe be whole, instead of different parts and different timelines, he's just one whole body.
Well, that also, the book really, like, Livestream Black and White really helps not only with this movie, but explains that stuff in Remake. So how the book ties into the movie is actually a prequel to the movie. So Sephiroth obviously dies in the original FF7, and he ends up going into the Livestream just like everyone else who dies. Then it's learned that Sephiroth actually refuses to give up his body and soul, well, his soul into the Livestream, and basically fights it off. He gives up his memories, not all, like, of his past and, like, what he looks like, and that's actually why he has the Advent Children. It's actually explained that the Advent Children are separated, because I noticed you said this with Kadaj being the leader. He's actually, like, built to be the leader of the Advent Children, and kind of gains Sephiroth's anger towards the planet. Mm. Which you do see. Laz is actually his strength and speed, which is probably why he is an idiot this entire movie. And Yasu kind of has his charisma, and they say his aloof attitude, which is actually in the original, but it's in the flashback of the original before his big change. And it does say they're born from Sephiroth trying to create basically an avatar for himself, but he actually just can't, because he has so much, like, fragmented memories that he has to, one, split them up and has to be somebody else.
Yeah, and, tying into Remake, when you're fighting the Arbiter of Fate, and there's the three separate Arbiters, there has been so many, theories, and there's been, videos and blogs and everything in between written how those three Arbiters all have the, like, obviously they're not completely the same because they're in, like, that spiritual form, so to speak, but the weapons that they use are indicative of the Advent Children in 7 that those three have now turned into arbiters themselves. Now, how that's tying in, we're not completely sure, but again, it seems pretty I'm going to say obvious to me that they are now, they've gone from Advent Children and they are somehow now part of this, Arbinger of Fate and the attempt to change things.
It actually is confirmed that it's them.
Oh, okay.
So it's 100% them.
Gotcha. Interesting. And that's the crazy thing now about Final Fantasy VII is there's some things confirmed. There's so many, questions and theories and everything in between, and it's like it's one of those things where we've talked about this before, and well, what if it's this, and that's what if it's none of it? Oh my god, what if none of this is real? But I also feel we went back a while ago and we watched the the very first piece of video footage that stated that Final Fantasy VII was being remade. And it's right there in the trailer that this was not going to be the same Final Fantasy VII. The way that they describe this, and they're what you knew will no longer be the same.
I love it. I love it.
Going back now, it's wow, they were pushing that this remake was going to be, it was going to have the same foundation. The house, the walls, the rooms were not going to be what you remember. If before your house was blue, well, they just made it green. And it's just really interesting to see where this is going to go, not only from the game standpoint, in terms of the console game, but again, all these things that they are doing with the mobile games and in between, and God knows what we'll maybe get in between part 2 and part 3, and again, how many parts they make this game, but where this is going to tie into.
Yeah, one thing also is, I have the theory that they're trying to make, and this is great, they're trying to make these games accessible to everyone, because Remake, to a complete surprise, was on PS Plus for completely free.
Yeah.
I remember waking up to that, I was like, huh?
What is this?
I was like, this game's not even a year old, and it's not like it sold bad. It sold 50 million copies in 5 days. Well, no, 5 million copies in 5 days, and I think it's one of the most sold PlayStation exclusives.
Yeah.
So you're kind of thinking, also with the upgrade to PS5 being free, we're we definitely know Square made that decision, because we're all thinking, oh, we're going to have to pay an extra 20 because it's Square Enix. No, it's not.
Right, yeah.
So with the mobile game, basically, it's not only doing 7 Advent Children, it's doing Crisis Core, before Crisis, which there's no way to play it anymore.
Yeah.
You have to go on YouTube in order to know what happens. And this is going to be great, Dirge of Cerberus.
Which was mangled when it came out.
Because it sucks.
But it's crazy because now when you play Intergrade, boy, now all of a sudden it looks like Dirge of Cerberus is actually, it actually means something. When before it was oh, geez, this went nowhere. There's things that happen in Intergrade that are well, holy cow, they're going to manage to turn Dirge of Cerberus, this game that was mangled and ridiculed and, forgotten at the bottom of the trash bin, to be oh man, I gotta do some research on this. Who are these characters? What does this mean? What is that secret ending in Dirge of Cerberus? Does that tie in to what is happening?
Yeah. One thing, for anyone listening, if you're still kind of oh, I don't know about the changes or the story, just think of this. They made concepts from Dirge of Cerberus, cool. They made Deep Ground actually, really, really good. I'm this is, I feel that's kind of the guiding light towards it, that they're able to make these concepts, cool. The final boss in Intergrade is one of the better ones in the entire game.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of, final boss, you wouldn't really call him a final boss in the movie, but when Sephiroth comes back in Advent Children and he fights Cloud, that scene is unbelievable. It's so good. I really love, you wouldn't think, to me, that like, oh, blood, it makes it better, because I don't necessarily need it. Like, I'm a huge horror movie genre fan. Like, I just absolutely love it, but I also don't sit there and say like, oh, you need buckets of blood and guts. But Advent Children Complete Edition, when he's fighting Cloud, adds blood, and as he's fighting towards the end, he gives him like, geez, it feels like 20, 30 stabs.
He pokes him like a kid pokes his veggies.
Right. You know, but like just that little stuff that they added in this complete edition is really cool. And the blood makes, you know, it gives impact to the battle that like he really is, like, Cloud's getting messed up. And I really enjoy that little detail of it adding, but I also really enjoy the detail of, you know, you really get to see what the difference is between Cloud and Sephiroth. Granted, the dialogue's like not that great when he's like, there's not a thing I don't cherish. The line falls a little flat.
Oh, I love that. That's where I disagree. I love that line.
Okay, yeah. All right. I feel like the way that that's given doesn't really work for me. But I appreciate the parallels between the two characters where Cloud finally realizes, like, yes, these people are important to me. I want to protect them. But he moves past just, like, wanting to protect them, because he was, in the beginning of the movie, he was still protecting them, but he wasn't there. And this is where, like, once Sephiroth says he's going to take everything away from him, like, tell me what you treasure most. Give me the pleasure of taking it away from you. It's when Cloud realizes that, like, it's not enough to just protect these people. I want to be with them. I want to share experiences with them. I want to know what's going on, like, day to day, which to me is, you know, we're in this segment, we talk about relatable themes. To me, that's a very relatable message. You know, spending time with those people that you care about. And I really like how at the end of the movie that's really front and center, that he realizes he wants to be with this group.
Yeah. It was... So Cloud in this movie, I think not only for like us, but even for the fandom, it took a very long time for people to kind of accept kind of how Cloud is. So Cloud in the beginning of the movie and most of the movie is still dealing with the loss of Aerith. And it mentions, like, he never really was able to let go and to get over her loss, which is actually a theme in the original FF7. Like, it really is. Like, aside from some of the other themes, like corporations and everything, and, like, the world not being black and white, like, you dealing with loss and kind of struggling through it, that's a key theme in 7.
Mm-hmm.
So they really pushed through it to, you could say it's kind of resolved in 7 and kind of added back on, but then again, you kind of think he never had that time to recover, because then again, like, who knows how long Geostigma was on him, and that just made it worse. So as you're going through the whole movie, like, you realize Tifa means a lot to him, especially in the game, with one of the better scenes in the game, in the live stream. And then it builds up to that fight, where they mentioned he's gotten his strength back. And that strength doesn't really mean physical. It's his mental strength and kind of his heart. To where it's all kind of building up, even where you don't realize it. To where it all releases in that one line, there isn't a thing in this world I don't cherish.
It's a good way to put it. I'm just going to really quickly piggyback off of, speaking of Geostigma and how long he has it, let's not forget the scene in, you know, remake where Sephiroth grabs the same arm that in Advent Children he has Geostigma.
Cloud does.
Yes, sorry, Cloud does. And all of a sudden he has the exact same reaction as he does in Advent Children. Just like another piece of the puzzle that this stuff is connected. I want to talk about, if you have something else that you want to go to first, let me know. But one thing that we both majorly agree on in this movie And I would love anybody that's listening to this episode, please interact with the social media pages. They're all going to be in the notes. Is Barrett's design. And Barrett's design in this movie is just... It's a point where we sit there and, like, we laugh about it because I don't understand what the decision was to change him to fishnets and the dreadlocks.
White just, shirt.
Yeah, like, it's just a very weird... Like, everybody else stayed the same. Granted, Cloud gets a little bit of an update.
There's still foundations. Like, these characters change, but Nomura kept the foundation for them.
But for Barrett...
Let's throw that all out.
Literally, it was like literally, they took his design, they threw it out, and they hit random generator on the character create screen, and they decided that this was gonna be the new look for Barrett. And it's really just... Like, it's odd, and we're hoping for some kind of weird, like, call-out on that in, like, part 2 or something, where, like, he gets dreads or something, or there's some sort of mention of his character redesign in Advent Children, like, somehow, some way, that's made a point in the game.
If either on the boat to Costa del Sol or in Costa del Sol he gets dreads, I need Cloud to make fun of it. Because here's the thing. Tetsuya Nomura... His designs, first, no matter what you say about his writing or anything, his designs are iconic.
Yep.
Like, a lot of the stuff, especially JRPG fans, a lot of the stuff you play has Nomura designs, especially Final Fantasy. Like, if you, like, first really good Nomura design, look at the Warrior of Light from Final Fantasy 1. Like, that is a really good design, and then you think of, like, he designed all of these characters in 7. Every single one. So, like, his designs are so, like, iconic, like, amazing, they fit. And then you get Barrett. Especially, like, in the remake, he has such a good... Like, his design is so well brought out.
Fantastic.
And then you look at it, like, like, the hair doesn't fit, like, the zero shirt, like...
Yeah.
Like, and then, like, the color white doesn't really fit with Barrett. Like, that white vest, it doesn't fit. Like, it's so weird. Because it's one of the, like, to me, it's one of the worst Nomura designs, like, ever. Like, I hate it.
Yeah, it was a very odd choice. And again, for every other character to have pretty much their foundation all stay intact and to make this one change to one character, it sticks out like a sore thumb when you're watching this movie.
Yeah, like, some of these characters don't change. Sid, Kate Sith, Red, Vincent, don't change. They just decide to flip everything with Barrett, and it's so weird, because even, like, for the upcoming game, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, like, I would say even those characters, because you're able to customize them, like, some of the stuff in there, like, looks way better than him.
Yeah.
Like, even though we laugh at that game we laugh at to death sometimes.
Oh my god, yeah, we have some pretty good laughs. Oh man, yeah. If we start getting into that, that'll be a whole nother. That'll just be a whole nother topic. But you know, before we move on to favorite characters in this movie, or least favorite and least favorite parts, is there anything that you want to follow up down on, like the main themes or like the actual story of Advent Children?
What was I gonna say? I feel like they pick up a lot on different, like, parts of not only FF7, but some of the stuff before that. I just wish some of the stuff... Oh, I didn't even get to the full Aerith and Sephiroth stuff. So, the prequel to this movie, it's not even a prequel, it's what happens directly before between Aerith and Sephiroth. So, like I said, Sephiroth refuses to give into the life stream. So... Geostigma is created by Sephiroth, and how he does it is that he takes a lot of the souls that haven't returned to the life stream yet and really manipulates them, and really takes on, like, kind of what makes Sephiroth great is his manipulation. So he does manipulate all the souls and basically, like, uses their hatred to corrupt the life stream in general, and they do make the connection with Geostigma in the live stream. So when that's corrupted, it corrupts the bodies of a lot of people. Aerith really tries to fight Sephiroth, like not like in a full on not in a full on battle, but she loses. Like she loses, and this movie happens because of it. And she can go in a way like Sephiroth did with the Advent Children. I actually think there's a possibility that she could have just went in full. Like she could have reappeared as Aerith. But she did say, like, it does say, like, she doesn't want to. She does not want, like, she knew Cloud, like, even at the time, had a weak heart. Like, she didn't want to put Cloud through that. And so this entire movie, and you kind of get it at the end, Aerith's, like, really helping them out. Especially with, at the end, like, they don't specifically say it, but she casts, like, Holy and uses the light stream to kind of cure everyone of Geostigma. Like, that's an entire thing that's not, like, explained in the movie, and it's in the book. And it's actually, like, pretty interesting.
Where can you get that book?
Actually, like, you could get it online.
Like, going to just Amazon?
Barnes & Noble, like, we've crossed it a couple times, actually.
Ah, alright.
Or it's online. Like, you could just look in Livestream Black and White, and it's, like, you don't even have to get the whole book. Those paragraphs are right there.
Nice. Very cool. So, you know, I guess it's maybe hard to, like, for me, it's maybe hard to, like, name a least favorite character in this movie. I mean, obviously, we can name a least favorite design for Barrett. Do you have one that comes just off the top of your head for, like, somebody in this movie you don't actually like? Like, would it be Reno?
See, you could kind of say Reno if it wasn't for, like, Yazoo not getting screen time.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, watching this movie one time, I go, where is he during the... Like, he doesn't, like... Yazoo just doesn't get screen time. And especially being a concept of Sephiroth's charisma, you would, like, especially after, like, learning and knowing about Sephiroth, you wish you would kind of get more of it. But he doesn't get, like, any. But he also has, like... I gotta look at it again. But he has, like, one of the coolest, like, weapon names ever. Velvet Nightmare.
Yeah, that name is unbelievable.
It sounds like a really cool limit break. I'm like, this is wasted on him. Why?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to name for me, like, a least favorite character because the certain concept of this, but I will say that I do have, I do have a least favorite scene of this movie. And for me, it definitely would be... This is going to sound weird and maybe like I'm playing both sides of the fence here, but it's definitely that battle scene where... The name's escaping me. The name of the monster again. Bahamut. Where they're fighting Bahamut. I like the fight, but it just leaves me wanting more. Like, it's almost over before it even feels like it begins when the group gets together. So I really wish they would have put some more effort into actually having the group fight together as a group. So to me, that scene is almost just wasted, which would make it my least favorite scene of the movie. But, do you have anything that jumps to you about...
See, least favorite scene, I didn't really, look at a scene and go... Ugh. I looked at some scenes and went, like, when the fight with Tifa and Laz, which is really good, but it, like, you have to laugh when it opens up. Because he walks into the church, this big church, there's two people with flowers there, and he goes, "Where's Mother?" And you're like, what? Like, you just have to laugh, because it's so out there. Especially after other times, like, they open up with, does he have Mother?
Right.
And, like, whenever they, like, go on these Mother, like, sprints or whatever, it's just like, oh my god. Like, that's where, like, the this is stupid point of the movie comes out.
Now, you mentioned this, earlier, but is that forest fight scene your favorite scene? Like, is that your favorite scene in the movie?
I would say Cloud versus Sephiroth.
Yeah.
What's funny enough is that I looked at it, I was like, this is how, like, kids probably imagine this fight. Like,
Right.
imagine those two fighting. But it's so good with, like, the choreography and everything. Like, Sephiroth literally cuts buildings into pieces to where Cloud has to dodge it.
Yeah, that fight, although it is, really, really cool, that forest scene where Cloud is he's dual wielding and going through and battling, and Vincent shows up. Just at the time when this first came out, and I'm always still gonna, like, my mind is still gonna go back to the first time I saw this, being able to see Cloud and Sephiroth clash off again, not just on a PlayStation screen, but man, like, in full-blown, like, really, really good CGI, was just like, oh my god, like, this is what I wanted.
So one thing, I did look at my notes again. One kind of scene that you won't really notice, and, like, there's a kind of re-shot of this scene with another aspect to it. It's, like, you won't realize it, but Cloud leaves the sword where Zack died.
Yeah, you're right. That is really cool.
There's another shot of it where flowers grow next to the sword and underneath the sword. And then there's another shot where Cloud leaves in the church right underneath the flowers. So that honestly is such a good callback and, like, such a good add-on to Cloud kind of letting go, to where Aerith and Zack are finally united and their swords are, the sword and the flowers are together. Like, that's a really good scene.
Yeah, that really is. That's a great point. Little things like that is really, really cool, actually. So we're gonna move forward here, and we're gonna go to the roll credits, and this is where we're gonna kind of wrap up this episode. We're gonna talk about our overall rating for this, and for me, when I first saw that, like, I'm gonna give you my score when I saw this movie originally, and then now seeing this movie after the remake has come out, and just everything that I think could possibly happen, and everything that I don't think could happen. But when I first saw this movie, I was like, wow, this is really cool. It left me still with some questions. Great fight scenes, really great animation. Love to see these characters back. A little disappointed because we didn't get them all together as a group as much as I would have liked. But I gave this movie 3.5 stars when I first saw it. And now rewatching it, I can't help but just be, like, overwhelmed by it, to the point where, again, it's not a perfect movie, and my rating isn't because it's perfect. My rating is just because of the enjoyment and the thought-provoking moments it now gives to me watching this. So watching this movie now, this is a 5-star movie for me without a doubt. Like, everything that's going on in the world of Final Fantasy VII just leads me to enjoy this movie so much more, and it just makes me just whirl with thoughts about what this movie actually means to where we're headed.
Yeah. A perfect comparison for me is, this is the Final Fantasy 15 of, like, movies.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 15 is like a 6 out of 10 game, but I love it. But I adore it. So I would say, before I would give it like a 3. Now I think it's like probably a 4, honestly. Like a very solid 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's still, it's funny sometimes when you're rating it out of 5, someone's like, oh, a 3, like, it's like, well,
no,
3's still a good score. Like,
you could have a solid 3 and still be a good movie.
Right, exactly. And sometimes it feels like you're not giving it a good, like you're not giving it a good score.
Just like how like a 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, that's still a, like, above average movie.
Right,
exactly. That's what's funny. Another Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy 14, you should play it, by the way, is
Biggest turnaround in gaming history.
First of all, yeah. First of all, it's amazing. Go play the free trial. There is an expansion between the expansion Heaven's Ward and Shadowbringers, which is one of the better stories in Final Fantasy. It's called Stormblood, and it's not as good as those two, but it's still like good. Stormblood is still better than like a lot of Final Fantasy stories. So like you could have a game that, like a game or a movie that's it's not as good as this, or like it's a 3 out of 5, but it's still like really good.
Yeah, it definitely, this movie has, to me, really improved over time and with what they're doing with it. And for any reason, like if you've never watched the complete version, I would definitely recommend doing that. And with that being said, as we're getting ready to sign off, one of the cool things that we're going to be able to do is, so anybody who is listening to this episode and has interacted with any of the social media posts or reacts to this, I'm going to give it, today is,
first.
Right now it is the 1st of December. And
oh no, it's the 2nd.
Now we're into the 2nd as we're recording this and getting ready to put it on the channel. But we're going to post this episode, and in the show notes, interact with this episode, go to Podchaser, leave a review. Any interaction that you're going to have specifically with this episode of Final Fantasy VII, we are going to give you a free digital download code for Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the Complete Edition. So if you've only ever seen the original or you've never watched this at all, this is your opportunity to get a completely free copy of the complete edition of this movie. You just need to interact with this episode. So before we go, this was actually, starting Matt Goes to the Movies, I started this over a year ago. A lot of you listeners that have been with the show, you've heard this story where I was at home, sitting at home during the pandemic like a lot of people. My business had shut down where I worked for the time. I was at home for 2 months, and I started this on a whim, and it's become so much fun. But this episode in particular, it was so cool because having my son do this with me and to watch how he, embraced Final Fantasy VII, because again, for me, my first foray into video games, really I had played Sonic and Mario, and Joe Montana Football 95 was for the Sega was oh my god, I loved it. But man, my true love for video games came from playing Final Fantasy VII. So to see, number one, to see the remake come out, which I never thought would be possible, was amazing. But then to actually have this experience and to have this with Brandon, with my son, to really see him get into Final Fantasy VII, to have him a part of this has been actually really, really cool, and just really exciting. I was looking forward to this for a long time. Brandon, you had mentioned this a while ago, to do this, and it was finally if we don't, we got to do this.
Yeah.
We have to get this done.
Yeah, it was just out on a whim. You should really do Advent Children, because this movie means a lot to you and both of us. I was like, we should do it. And then he's like, oh, you want to do it too? I go, sure. We could. Unfortunately, we didn't do the original plan of spend an hour ranting about Barrett's design, but
maybe we'll get to that in a part 2.
Yeah.
Once these new episodes come out and we see maybe what we get in other media forms for Final Fantasy. But listeners, thank you so much for joining us with this episode. Continue to look forward to that Spider-Man marathon that we're doing at Matt Goes to the Movies all the way up to No Way Home. But in the show notes, go to the pod page, subscribe, leave your email, get updated on future episodes. Let us know what you think of this one. Got a lot of feedback of people, waiting to see this episode and to talk about it. So really excited to hear what listeners' thoughts are on Final Fantasy VII Advent Children and just the world in general. So until next time, Thanks for spending time with us at Matt Goes to the Movies.